Brought to you by the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, and Standard.
As always, members of the House, while I hope you enjoy this semi-final round, please remain respectful and sensitive to our debaters and our judges. Without further ado, the first motion is Trinidad and Tobago's investment in development projects is insufficient to achieve sustainable development. Proposing the motion is Fatima College. I invite you to the stage. Opposing the motion is St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph. I invite you to the stage. Will the proposition speaker, Kennedy Valley of Fatima College, please take the floor?
You cannot solve a crisis without treating it as a crisis. Greta Thunberg. Judges. TNT's investment in development projects is insufficient to achieve sustainable development, development that secures future prosperity. And we reject the illusion of sufficiency you will hear from the opposition. Contrary to its common usage, investment is not merely monetary, but social and political, and misapplied expenditure is still insufficient. We'll measure our achievement against Vision 2030, our National Sustainable Development Agenda launched in 2015. I will examine the UN's 3 pillars of sustainability: society, economy, and environment through key national projects. First, society. Vision 2030 declares people first, but what of public health? In 2023, the Ministry of Health reported reduced funding, strained resources, and demoralized staff, compromising care. And though our education system fares well for the Caribbean, look to infrastructure. Of the $5 billion Education Ministry annual budget, only 1/10 remains for development projects as per the minister. Last September, with some schools unprepared for reopening, she stated this was insufficient. Second, the economy. Vision 2030 aims to build globally competitive business. Yet, in the 2023 Global Innovation Index, we were labeled underperforming. Contrast this with Singapore, another small island which ranked 5th globally in innovation through strategic investment in tech and education. What about us? A 2005 OECD study revealed over 3/4 of our university graduates live abroad. Brain drain is a long-standing challenge rooted in a lack of economic diversification. The Point Lisas Industrial Estate, established in 1972, remains our largest non-oil manufacturing project. But other sectors still lag behind oil and gas, which make up 80% of our exports as per the Gas Exporting Countries Forum. By not building a broader economic base with jobs to retain talent, our investment is unsustainable. Third, the environment. Vision 2030 calls for greener industries. Admirably, BP offered to pioneer our first utility-scale solar project. But while it was initially promised for late 2024, it was then delayed to the second quarter of 2025. Here we are, and still no solar. In March, BP CEO announced an increase to $10 billion in oil and gas investment, double our national education budget with focus on TNT, while cutting $5 billion from renewables. Yet companies like BP only respond to the economic landscape they're given. This delay and imbalance do not reflect corporate failure, but a broader issue of national direction and prioritization. TNT has set a target of 30% renewable energy by 2030. Yet as of 2021, the World Bank reports only 0.5% of our electricity came from renewables. That is unsustainable and insufficient. Finally, I have a question. Worthy opponents, how do you prove sufficiency? Not with a long list of successes or grand figures, but by responding to the insufficiencies obstructing our 2030 agenda. What our government deems necessary. We must act. We propose the motion. Thank you.
Will the opposition speaker, Sapphire Figaro of St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph, please take the floor?
Rome was not built in a day, but brick by brick. So then why does the proposition come here rushing results without acknowledging where we are? The investments that TNT has made are bricks working together to build our very own Rome. We see efforts and investments in the social, economic, and environmental sectors of our country. This is why we, the opposition, is here today to show you the reason why we believe that TNT's investment is sufficient to achieve sustainability. Bear in mind, sufficiency does not refer to reaching the heights of our target, but it refers to meeting present needs and staying on the roadway to achieve greater. We acknowledge the needs in our environment, such as removal of carbon emissions, removal of pollution, and protecting our wildlife, and these have been provided for. In fact, the Ministry of Planning, through the National Ozone Unit, has undertook a US $5.1 million investment in adopting the use of low-carbon refrigeration and air conditioning, which was shown before to be a significant contributor to our carbon footprint. Not only that, but smaller project contributes as well, as in the placement of IK bins in over 790 locations and a law that constantly protects our flora and fauna. These needs are being met. The proposition seems to forget that. Needs in our social life, such as education, such as public assistance, such as healthcare. In fact, 15.4 thousand individuals presently is underneath the public assistance grants. We are helping the people. We are focused on the people. In fact, healthcare with a $7.5 billion budget, where they continuously invest in the infrastructure, such as recent Couva Hospital, who had a roof system update, which cost $5.5 million. And education, where 15.7 individuals pursue their university degree under Gates assisted programs, 525 loans underneath the HELP initiative, 277 bursaries given to CAPE students. So then how can the proposition say that we are not people-centered when these are for the benefit of the people? And last but not least, economic diversity and job availability. That is a problem that we are addressing. In fact, the ministry, through the Youth Agricultural Homestead Program, works to integrate 1,500 young farming families into the economy by providing them with 2 acres of land, a starting home, and $20,000 to kickstart their agricultural ventures per 1,500. This is people-centered results. This is money. This is time that we have invested. We are not reaching the heights. We have not reached there, but we are on the road to success. We have met needs of the present. We are helping people. We have invested sufficient. We are sufficient as a nation, and we continue to provide results. This is not just statistics. This is proof that we are on the right path. This is proof and encouragement to tell the nation, hold on to the investment. TNT is doing enough. Whether our proposition sees it or not, we stand here today showing you sufficiency. We have not reached, but trust and believe we have met needs. We are on our way there. Thank you.
Both teams now have 5 minutes to confer before rebuttal. So to you, our viewing audience, we take a short break and we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Make Your Point. Both teams have had 5 minutes to confer and are now ready for their rebuttal. Once again, the motion is Trinidad and Tobago's investment in development projects is insufficient to achieve sustainable development. Will the proposition speaker to rebut, David Scotland of Fatima College, please take the floor.
Special needs schools cry out for help. The title of a Guardian article published in November last year, where the concerns of parents of special needs children were addressed. These people exclaim that we receive untimely, if any, funding at all. This is not only so for special needs schools, but for education in general, where last year a $2 billion repair bill was issued to the Ministry of Education and they were unable to meet it, in spite of their $5 billion budget on top of subsidies from the SSIP program. And they exclaim that they were left with $250 million to do the repairs and were unable to provide quality education for all. Furthermore, GATE, the program that these people mentioned on the opposition side, the pass rate according to Education Times is 18.87%. Imagine, we are spending our money giving these children subsidies, but we have not addressed the root of the problem, the education system itself. Therefore, while the investment is there, the sustainability is not. And some food for thought. A private sector doctor makes approximately $232,000 per year, according to average salary survey. But a public sector doctor makes $91,000 per year. Where is this investment, the $7.2 billion, really going? Last year, 7 babies died at Port of Spain General Hospital, and this was due to a lack in investment of training our practitioners, and this led to an outburst by the public. According to the Trinidad and Tobago Medical Board, it was revealed that untrained and unqualified doctors were operating as medical specialists, and this is and has been for a long time a cause for concern. They also spoke about attempts to make reductions in our carbon emissions. According to Worldmeter, in 2022, we produced 30 million tons of carbon dioxide. But however, our Vision 2030 goal only attempts to reduce this by 30%. Is this really the great investment we see into our sustainable future? Furthermore, I would also like to say that our agriculture program is still being met with problems, as people cited lack of technology in order to reap benefits from these programs. I would like to end on this note. Sustainability is meeting the needs of the present without jeopardizing the future. And according to the UNDP, we are not on track as the proposition claims. And they said, and I quote, Trinidad needs to accelerate its efforts. Thank you.
Will the opposition speaker to rebut, Carrie Stavertai of St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph, please take the floor.
We've heard the proposition argue that Trinidad and Tobago's investment in development projects is insufficient. But while their argument highlights challenges such as costs, readiness, and even the time that it may take, we need to look at the bigger picture. Sustainable development is not an overnight achievement. It is a process. As we said before, Rome was not built in a day. It was built brick by brick. And as a country, we are laying investments to construct sustainability in social, economic, and environmental projects that I don't think our proposition is fully aware of. So let us humor them. Let us address their previously stated points. They talked about the delay in the BP solar project, but this delay further improves our sufficiency. We learned from these mistakes, and these are not mistakes. These are not problems as the proposition claims they are. These are opportunities for growth and to further emphasize our sustainability as a nation. They also mentioned the readiness of the schools, but these schools have been on the path to sustainable development, and they will further exemplify that. They have, as a country, we have put aside revenue, we have put aside time, and just because some schools aren't ready doesn't mean that we should overlook the other schools that are. These are not failed projects. These are opportunities for growth. And as we said before, Rome was not built in a day. It was built brick by brick. And sustainable development in Trinidad and Tobago cannot be a rushed process. It cannot be something we think of overnight. It has to be fully thought out, investment by investment, project by project. Thank you.
Both teams now have 5 minutes to confer before summary. So we take another short break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Make Your Point Season 4, the semi-finals. Both teams have had 5 minutes to confer and are now ready to summarize. Once again, the motion is: Trinidad and Tobago's investment in development projects is insufficient to achieve sustainable development. Will the proposition speaker to summarize, Adam Alves of Fatima College, please take the floor.
Half a truth is often a great lie. Benjamin Franklin. The opposition, in choosing to propagate only half the story with no sources, has created a narrative more dangerous than any lie. That narrative is that the investment into sustainability in Trinidad and Tobago is sufficient. If we choose, like the opposition, to only read half the story, we will find our children economically challenged, socially regressed, and environmentally devastated. So I encourage the audience to go along with me as we observe the entire story in Trinidad and Tobago. When our economy is based upon diminishing natural resources, subject to volatile global market trends, the truth is that economic sustainability can only be achieved through the investment into our non-energy sector. Notably, the proposition seems to believe our agriculture sector is thriving with funding, but the truth is that despite being a key industry for fostering sustainability and independence from our $7.2 billion food import bill, in 2022's fiscal year, the investment and the budget allocation for the agricultural industry was the second lowest of all the ministries. A failure to invest into diversification is a failure to invest in sustainability. Environmentally, we all know of the flooding that wreaks havoc on our communities, yet still investment is not there. In 2020, the mayor of Shagona stated that the borough was starved for funds and could not invest properly. So, audience, whether environmentally, economically, or socially, Trinidad and Tobago lacks the investment necessary to achieve sustainable development. And that is nothing but a fact. Thank you very much.
Will the opposition speaker to summarize, Kaylee Marie Chow of St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph, please take the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't a case of wishful thinking. This is a case built on billion-dollar budgets, nationwide projects, and measurable progress. We didn't come to debate whether more could be done. We came to prove that what's already being done is enough to drive real, lasting change. The numbers speak louder than speculation. Over 100 million in environmental initiatives like recycling programs and renewable energy projects. 7.5 billion going into healthcare and 7.1 billion the year before that. That's sufficiency. The opposition says that more should be done and that this isn't enough. But just because the tree hasn't grown to its full height doesn't mean that it's not growing at all. Sustainability is an ongoing journey, not a one-time, one-stop destination. But let's not confuse room for growth with lack of progress. Sufficiency doesn't mean that we've done it all. It means that we have done enough to stay on track, to build momentum, and to create real impact. Trinidad and Tobago is doing just that. We are people-centered. We are powering 31,000 homes with renewable energy, giving 15,000 people access to public assistance, and investing billions into healthcare. That's not theory. That's transformation. We're not stagnant. We're growing. The investments are working. And sustainability isn't just a dream. It's unfolding right before our eyes. Thank you.
This concludes our first of two semi-final debates. Let's give both teams a well-deserved round of applause. Judges, your feedback.
I'll start with Fatima College. Very strong opening. It was strategic to start with Greta's quote at the beginning because she's like the poster child now for climate change, sustainable development. So, once I started to put a face to this debate, it became something I was more interested in. Something that you did, which is that you began your proposition opening by rejecting the opposition before even hearing their argument. What if in some weird twist the opposition came and supported everything what if they didn't fulfill the role of opposing, but you outrightly rejected them? So sometimes in your opening, it's better to just focus on delivering the strongest opening points and original arguments for your team rather than focusing on what they have not yet said. I felt your rebuttal speaker, I felt like your summary speaker was actually strong and should have been your rebuttal. The way that he summarized, for me, came across more like a rebuttal in the way that he did it, because he's such an effective speaker, talking about half a truth. All those things had, to me, focused more on opposing the opposition and trying to discredit them, and I thought it would have worked more effectively as a rebuttal, because your rebuttal speaker didn't jam the opposition. He didn't go for them and target them in specific. So I felt that was an area that maybe you all would want to look at. I'll go to St. Joseph's Convent. St. Joseph, Sapphire, I felt like you really brought the fire in this debate. I've been looking at a lot of election rallies, right? And even though politicians are not on a stage debating each other, there is a debate taking place when you listen to one political party and the next. And in the way that they deliver and they speak, it comes across almost like a debate. And I felt you brought some of that energy, which was just riveting for me. It was good to start with Rome is not built in a day. I like how you all argued the sufficiency part of it. You defined what is sufficiency, which is important. You put that into context, and then you spoke about and really reinforced that you are on a pathway to sustainable development, and it's about a journey. Very strong end as well. Reese, good reinforcement as rebuttal. You targeted them talking about delays, which was good because it means that you're listening. It means that you're paying attention to what they're saying to rebut. Good job there. And also, Kaylee, nice end, nice summary. I thought you all were very heavy on the facts and the figures, and you all came well prepared. So good job by both schools.
A couple, I wouldn't call them minor points, but I'd say points of consideration. Number one, propositions rebuttal speaker. On a finer point, when you said these people, like in future, like honorable colleagues, honorable opposition, any of those terms would work, but we tend to always advise debaters to stay away from terms like these people, because they could if they came back and said, well, who is these people? And then they could really take your words and like use it against you. The other thing I would say is you have a limited amount of time, but do not be afraid to slow down. Yeah? Speed can be used for effect. It draws people in. And so sometimes when you're speaking very quickly, you project nervous energy, right? And when you speak too quickly and it actually impacts your pronunciation, your enunciation, it then makes it harder for the audience to understand what you're saying. On the opposition side, I'll definitely say powerful start for the opposition speaker when you began, but I also would have encouraged you to slow down a little bit. And I think one of the key things from, particularly if you're going to defend that that we are on the path to achieving something, particularly for your side, I would have definitely gone into a bit more definition. If I'd have carved out a little bit, like one of my minutes would have been like, this is what we're talking about and this is where we're going. That could have been really helpful for you. But in terms of your rebuttal speaker, in terms of Rome wasn't built in a day, and the not failed projects, but opportunities to learn, that was smart. And I think if you use that debate in the future, if you use that argument rather in the future, you say it's an opportunity to learn 15 seconds, and we learned this from it, which is why we did X the next time. You know what I mean? That would have helped. And then so finally, I think one interesting thing that I took away from how the debate was structured was when the first speaker introduced the point and said, the opposition will try to convince you that it's sufficient. A lot of the languaging around how the debate was structured then fed into the realm of sufficiency. And that's understandable in one sense, but don't forget that the actual debate was about insufficient to achieve sustainable development. So the actual core is actually sustainable development and what that is.
If I were to look at Fatima Kennedy, I mean, it was good. Greta was good use because it's a young person. So rather than making a reference to an older person, it ties back to the young generation. Again, you used very good examples of Singapore, the UN Sustainable Goals, a lot of important information being passed very quickly. But I think the important point being made is how do we benchmark, or how, what you said is what is the national direction? So with all these ideas, how are we directing ourselves towards it? That was important. But from a style point of view, too fast. David, I thought good also, very good. A bit fast also. I don't know if it's a Fatima trend, but you took your time and went through all the issues that were raised from health, education. You took them one by one, so you were trying very diligently to rebut you talked about the agriculture, you looked at the UNDP sustainable goals. What you could have looked at also is the issue that the opposition was talking about was the time it takes to develop. It's not a press button, but maybe it could have been how can they benchmark, because they are also raising issues of their development. It would have been useful to say, well, look, this time they're talking about, it's not Rome wasn't built in a day, but what should they be gearing towards? And in the summary speaker, I thought it was your good quote. Your pace was a lot more measured. You were very articulate. Gesticulation was good. Your hand movement, all those were really good. You sort of tie back everything that the lead speaker did, which was good because it brought home the argument in a very useful way that I think made a really good impact. And Convent, again, Sophia, your tone was very good. You were articulate. You looked at your opponents. So you had a very good tone in the way in which you dealt with it. You went through a number of important aspects, whether it was the Ministry of Planning works, the health, the education, the loans, agriculture, so that what you try to do is try to encapsulate all that the government is doing to demonstrate their efforts for sustainability. Again, it might have been useful to say what was the goal that they were trying to achieve. While Rome is not built in a day, what is our benchmark that we're trying? So we're trying really hard, but we're trying to achieve what? Is it the sustainable goals? We know that's the global benchmark, but maybe trying to draw reference that we are working towards something, not just working to achieve it. Good statistics with the refrigeration and the other aspects in terms of the statistics you use. Carice, you hammered home the point again of your opposition of the sustainability is not overnight, which is a fact. That's an important point, so that your reference to tying back to what your opposition speaker was good, but whether you were rebutting properly, effectively, the SDG goals of the UN in terms of how is the government really going to overcome not fulfilling the goals. So your proposition speakers really hammered home that whole United Nations goal and the failure, while you said it's not being done overnight, maybe a little more reference in terms of how you all are trying to achieve it. But overall, good tone, good command in terms of engaging the audience. And you looked at some of the points that were with the schools, the agriculture, so that you tried to bring it home also. Kaylee, who brought it home, you looked at measurable projects that were done. What is being done is enough. So you talked about the $100 million projects, good use of sustainability to bring it home. Again, you all resonated the point of it takes time. Rome was not built in a day, so it was a common theme of what you all were trying to say. And that is good that you're all speaking from the same hymn book. Again, it's trying to rebut that whole overall aspect of what we should be aspiring to, what we have done, how do we balance it? So on both sides, one side needed to say what they were going towards, and the other side needed to say, well, what do you need to come up to? But overall, a very good debate, very solid, difficult topic, and well handled by both sides.
Thank you, judges, and congratulations to both teams. We now take another short break, and when we return, it's our semi-final round 2. Queen's Royal College versus Bishop Anstey High School. Welcome back to Make Your Point Season 4. The second and final motion of this semi-final round is Switching to renewable energy sources like electric vehicles and solar power does more harm than good for the planet. Will the proposition speaker, Akash Raghu of Queen's Royal College, please take the floor?
Let's begin with a simple truth. To switch is not to adapt. Cambridge Dictionary tells us that switching means a sudden or complete change, not a calculated, careful adjustment. And that's the fatal flaw of this motion. It doesn't ask us to transition, it demands an immediate wholesale replacement. Now let's be clear. We understand that electric vehicles are not energy sources like wind or solar power, but they are a key part of renewable infrastructure and technology, and they are expected to operate in tandem with clean energy sources. So if the backbone, the power grid, the policy, the planning isn't renewable, then the switch is flawed. Now, we the proposition are not against renewables, but we are against a reckless switch. And here's why. Firstly, in Trinidad and Tobago, renewable ambitions clash with our harsh economic reality. According to the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas, one electric bus here cost over $340,000, and to date, the only solar power charging station is at this campus, UWI St. Augustine. So that's not readiness. That is regression. And yes, the EU has funded solar initiatives, but allow me to ask one of our proud sponsors, the Ministry of Planning and Development, as to if the government is truly committed to implementing these initiatives, because I pose the questions, where are the budgets? Where are the local workforce? And where is the maintenance plan? So when and how is this to be implemented? Now, secondly, we often hear the phrase, green means clean, but is it really? No, let's look at lithium and cobalt, essential for electronic vehicles, their batteries, and they are mined in devastating conditions, often in countries like the Congo. And I ask us to be reminded of Fatima's plea for the suffering children in the last episode. And I quote from the National Public Radio, who reminds us that we shouldn't transition to electric vehicles at the cost of the people and environment of one of the most downtrodden corners of the world. And I pose a question to the opposition as to what happens when these batteries and solar panels die, but I'll answer the question for them. They become hazardous waste, and with limited recycling systems, they are dumped and piled in our landfills. And here's the kicker. Trinidad and Tobago still generates over 90% of its electricity from natural gas. So when you charge your electric vehicle and you think you're unplugging from fossil fuels, you're just furthering the pipeline. This isn't just harmful to industry or infrastructure, it's harmful to the planet itself. Now, my third point speaks on inequality and energy dependence. In TNT, the Newsday reports that even with tax breaks, an electric vehicle costs nearly $600,000 TT. That's not a solution. That's a status symbol, a luxury. And fossil fuel workers are being left behind with no reskilling plans and no strategy to transfer their expertise. And because most clean tech is imported, guess what? We lose energy independence. As a matter of fact, just recently, Donald Trump reversed US support from the Dragon gas deal with us and Venezuela, a deal meant to boost regional energy security. One foreign policy decision, and boom, the entire energy strategy of this country is shaken. Let's examine the real-world impact. Let's look at some SDGs. 7, affordable energy, not when prices rise and infrastructure lags. Or 13, climate action, not when progress is more performative than practical. And even 15, life on land, bulldozed by solar sprawl and wind farms. So yes, my woody opponents, the future is renewable, but the present is not ready. So what is our solution? It's a gradual integration, smart investment, real support for vulnerable communities. We need infrastructure, education, and time, 15 years perhaps, not blind leaps off energy cliffs into the dark. Because when the panel cracks and the batteries corrode and the power priced out, who pays? Thank you.
Will the opposition speaker, Kai Job of Bishop Anstey High School, please take the floor?
A transition to clean energy is about making an investment in our future. Gloria Rubin. This pie chart, as simple as it looks, tells the horror story of our planet's greatest crisis. This enormous slice, over 3/4 of the circle, represents the carbon emissions from fossil fuels, the very energy sources we've depended on for centuries, the sources that powers our cars, lights our cities, and builds our economies. But they've also done something else: choke our skies, poisoned our oceans, and destabilized our climate. However, despite my opponent's claims, we can have hope for something better. This sliver, that is the impact of renewable energy. Everything the proposition claims has more harm than good. But really, this, more harm than good? Are you all sure about that? In the Pacific, rising oceans are swallowing islands. We are being told that solar panels and electric vehicles are things that are harming our planet. That argument is like blaming a fire extinguisher for the fire. Let's talk facts. Electric vehicles don't cough toxic gases into our streets. Solar panels don't spill oils into our oceans. And wind turbines don't poison the air our children breathe. Yes, the production of green tech has a footprint, but fossil fuels, it doesn't last forever. Electric vehicles utilize renewable technology and their batteries get recycled. Solar panels last for decades. Fossil fuels, they burn once and the damage lingers for generations. The world as a whole recognizes this field. The Paris Agreement, which has been signed by 195 countries as of 2025, has been developed and designed primarily because we need change. Let's bring it closer to home. In Trinidad and Tobago, the effect of climate change is growing. It is happening right now. Floods are more destructive, dry seasons are more intensive. But we're taking action with the Project Lara. We've launched our first utility solar farm set to generate 300,000 megawatt hours of clean electricity annually, enough to power over 42,000 homes. We are aiming for 30% renewable energy by 2030, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Trinidad and Tobago may have been built on oil, but our future is powered by something cleaner. Our proposition may try to confuffle you with the argument of battery production and rare earth mining. Yes, lithium mining has environmental cost, but guess what? So does digging for oil. Unlike oil mining and fossil fuels, which we burn once and they're gone forever, technology can be reused, repurposed, and recycled. We don't need perfection, we need progress. This chart doesn't lie. If we want to get rid of the massive fossil fuel damage, we have to invest in technologies that create this smaller one. So judges and my worthy opponents, do we cling to the past, to the smoke, to the spills, to the destruction, or do we move forward toward clean and sustainable air and power, and a fighting chance at giving the future generations? Let's shrink the slice. Let's power our world responsibly. Let's stand for sustainable technology because it does far more good than harm. Thank you.
Both teams now have 5 minutes to confer before rebuttal. So to you, our viewing audience, we take a short break. Please do stay with us. Welcome back. This is Make Your Point. Both teams have had 5 minutes to confer and are now ready for their rebuttal. Once again, the motion is switching to renewable energy sources like electric vehicles and solar power does more harm than good to the planet. Will the proposition speaker to rebut, Brendan Butcher of Queen's Royal College, please take the floor.
Ladies and gentlemen, the opposition spewed nothing but fallacies. Allow me to bring clarity to this debate. They alluded that switching to renewables grants us energy independence and moves us away from fossil fuels, but not when almost all renewable tech is imported. We do not manufacture solar panels, wind turbines, lithium batteries, or electric cars locally. We depend heavily on foreign supply chains, engineering, and software to operate and maintain these systems. If that's not dependence, what is? Consider this. Donald Trump's recent revoking of our license from the Dragon gas deal between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela instantly destabilized a major local energy project. And as recent Energy Minister Stuart Young declared, Trinidad and Tobago must defend our energy interests to survive. We need gradual transition. You may call it green freedom, but when it's built on foreign batteries, foreign grants, and foreign goodwill, it's independence, not dependence. They also stated that there is funding of renewable initiatives like Project Lara in Trinidad and Tobago, and that's progress. Yes, initiatives like the EU's GCCA Plus project did win the Best Decarbonization Project 2025, but recognition isn't replication. It was a pilot, not a permanent fix. According to the UNDP's own article, the success relied heavily on external funding, foreign consultants, and international frameworks. There is no clear local plan for scalability upkeep or infrastructure handover. So, let's be honest. What happens when the foreign funding ends? We've seen this before. Foreign funded projects start with ribbon cutting and end with rusted infrastructure. Foreign aid is a spark, but when it is using fuel with local fuel, it burns out fast. Yes, you can't build a green future off one-off grants and photo ops. They also blindly stated that renewable energy reduces greenhouse gas emissions and fights climate change. In theory, yes, but the motion isn't about potential. It is about the current consequences of switching. According to the Electric Communication Privacy Act 2018, electric vehicles in fossil fuel-reliant countries still emit CO2. In Trinidad and Tobago, electricity is primarily generated from natural gas, meaning electric vehicles still run on fossil fuels. A study by the International Council on Clean Transportation found that electric vehicles can emit as much as gasoline cars. Plus, according to the MIT Energy Initiative 2020, manufacturing electric vehicles generate up to 68% more emissions than non-electric vehicles due to battery production. So, if your car runs on gas disguised as electricity, and your battery ends up in a toxic waste dump, are you really fighting climate change? Thank you.
Will the opposition speaker to rebut, Marika James of Bishop Anstey High School, please take the floor.
So, let me get this straight. The proposition wants us to believe that the tools we've designed to save this planet are somehow doing more harm than good. That's like blaming the doctor for the disease. And we want to say that renewables are unreliable. And what will happen when the sun doesn't shine? Well, what happens when fuel prices spike, when gas stations run dry, when the national grid collapses from overuse? That is unreliable. And speaking of jobs, they claim the green economy will kill unemployment. But guess what? According to the International Renewable Agency, the renewable energy sector created 13.7 million jobs worldwide, and that number is still growing. And they bring up rate mining like it's a death sentence, but we are already innovating. Battery recycling is on the rise. Cleaner technology is evolving. You want to talk about harm? Let's talk about oil spills that decimate our coastlines, or air pollution that chokes our children. And yes, switching is idealistic. But it's not just about flipping a switch. It's a gradual, smart transition. Delay means more lost opportunities and more damage. Sustainable infrastructure does rely on fossil fuel. All systems do. But renewables steadily reduce the dependency, while fossil fuels only increase it. Solar farms and wind farms, yes, they disrupt habitats and they take up valuable land. You're right. But fossil fuels take up even more land and often destroy ecosystems entirely. Renewables can coexist with nature. Fossil fuels can't. Renewable technology pollutes through mining and lithium farming. But fuel extraction is far more destructive. Oil spills, gas flaring, and coal mining devastate land, air, and sea. Lifestyle studies show that renewable energy produces far fewer emissions over time compared to our fossil fuel-based systems. And lastly, when the proposition says we should slow down, we should gradually, very, very slowly integrate the system. We, the opposition, say that we cannot afford to. They point to flaws in sustainable technology as if the imperfection is a reason for paralysis, while they caution us to wait for better solutions. The seas are rising, the air is thick with heat and smoke. People are losing their homes, their crops, their lives. The planet is not waiting, and neither should we. This isn't just about technology, it's a movement. We are a generation that has the choice to inherit the damage or choose to fix it. And at the end of the day, sustainable technology isn't just about saving the planet, it's about saving ourselves. And if we have the power to do that, why would we ever turn away? Thank you.
Once again, both teams have 5 minutes to confer before summary. So we take another short break, but we'll be right back. Welcome back to Make Your Point, the semi-finals. Both teams have had 5 minutes to confer and are now ready to summarize. Once again, the motion is switching to renewable energy sources like electric vehicles and solar power does more harm than good to the planet. Will the proposition speaker to summarize, Sean Royer of Queen's Royal College, please take the floor.
This debate wasn't about whether renewable energy is bad, it is about whether a sudden switch to renewables can do more harm than good. We gave you 3 compelling reasons. Number 1, economic and infrastructural chaos. Trinidad and Tobago simply is not equipped. One fast charging station for the entire nation powered by solar energy, EVs costing what, $600,000? That's not progress, that's exclusion. 2, environmental and ethical deception. From lithium mines contaminating rivers in Chile to child labor in cobalt mines of the Congo, we showed that clean tech often comes from dirty hands. And 3, social inequality and energy insecurity. A rapid transition benefits the elite but leaves behind the vulnerable. Jobs are lost, skills are mismatched, and energy supremacy threatened by foreign tech dependency. The opposition might have waved around the idea green like some magic wand that solves all your problems, but we reminded you, greenwashing is not transformation. We're not dismissing renewables, we're demanding a realistic implementation, a just implementation, and a phased implementation. We need a quantifiable solution. Fortunately, the proposition has one. A national transition plan with a 15-year implementation window tied to SDG benchmarks and reviewed biannually, including infrastructure development, workforce retraining, environmental safeguards, and regional equity assessments. Because responsible, strategic adaptations ensure no one gets left behind, not our people, not our planet, and definitely not our principles. Thank you.
Will the opposition summary speaker, Adrian Monsrin of Bishop Anstey High School, please take the floor.
The best way to predict the future is to create it. Peter Drucker. Right now, we are being given the tools to create a future worth living in. Because sustainable technology is not just about panels and turbines and batteries, it's about freedom. It's the freedom to power our homes without polluting our skies. It's the freedom to breathe cleaner air, drink safer water, and build a world that's not defined by scarcity, but by sustainability. Imagine a nation where the sun powers our schools, where the wind lights up our communities, where our children don't have to wonder if they'll have water next year or clean air to breathe. That's not a dream. That's what sustainable technology offers us. It creates jobs, millions of them. It reduces our electricity bills. It gives small islands like ours a chance to stand tall, no longer shackled to the price of oil or politics of foreign gas. And no, solar panels and electric vehicles aren't perfect, but they don't pollute the air every single day like gas and diesel. They don't poison our oceans, and they don't lock us into a future of crisis due to limited resources. To add, international collaborations and financing mechanisms are available to support developing countries. Initiatives like the Green Climate Fund provide resources to assist in the adoption of renewable energy technologies, promoting sustainable development globally. So let's be honest, the harm isn't in switching, the harm is in stalling. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress, because doing nothing while the planet burns, that's not cautious, that's catastrophic. We can choose fair, or we can choose a future. And we, the opposition, choose a future. Thank you.
This concludes our second and final semi-final round of Make Your Point Season 4. Congratulations to both teams. Let's give them a hearty round of applause. Judges, your feedback.
My first level of feedback is, one, again, definitions really matter, and how you define these key terms really matter, but also how you conceive it in your mind also matters, right? Like, what do you think when you hear the word switching? What do you think sustainable actually means? What do you think a sustainable transition actually looks like? And there were other things, by the way, that could have been attacked as well. Just to speak to the Bishop's team a little bit. When they spoke about the Dragon deal being shut down from overseas, that contradicted their point about our reliance on overseas technology and our reliance on overseas resources such as knowledge and that kind of stuff. Because if we had our own energy sources that we were using, like wind and solar, we'd have more control over it, and no one could shut it down. So there were opportunities in there that weren't necessarily taken up, and things that they said that could have been attacked. So let me just give the rest of my feedback in point form. Number one, this idea of what a sustainable transition looks like, and the fact that it was the term sustainable transition actually came down to years in terms of 15 years versus well, I don't think you proffered back a time frame of your own, but 15 years versus an urgent transition is the first thing that I think was really the primary focus and should have been. But I would say if I were on the opposition side, it's a climate crisis, would have been my argument. And in a crisis, we need really urgent action. And then it would have been up to you to define what urgent meant. So that's number one, that in terms of that switching point. The second point is facts. And I don't have enough time to talk about some of the things that were said that are not factual. But just a couple of things. Again, I started from, I come into the proposition side. Because one EV costs $600,000 doesn't mean that all EVs cost $600,000, right? And that was a pivotal, the economic exclusivity point was something that they mentioned quite a few times. That was also an opportunity for you. And coming to QRC now, really good points were made about the manufacturing side in terms of the human cost of the transition. I think you mentioned lithium and cobalt. Those are really strong points. The point I wanted to end on was, this is a very relatable topic, and so imagery is definitely your friend. So the choking imagery, excellent. But definitely when you want to talk about a topic like this, which is now in the news, on many news cycles, bringing it back to people's daily lives is, I think, a commendable and advisable strategy.
If I were to start with Akash, again, a lot of information in a very short space of time, but you went through your 3 points to try to come across with what you're trying to achieve, which was good. You looked at using the recent example of Dragonfield and the impact that the global politics has on renewable energy and how governments deal with matters is important because we're looking at so many different changes that are taking place. And I think even using the examples of the car batteries, the impact it has in terms of the negative was important to bring it home. Looking at the fact that you are looking at over a period of time, yes, but know what is the consequence financially that it brings onto the country, the impact, that was important. So very articulate, very well thought out in trying to bring a lot of points across within a short space of time. Kai, again, it was good that what you're trying to do is hammer home the point that we're trying to make the world a better place. We're trying to create change in terms of a better living space, which is, I think, one of the big important aspects of climate change and any argument that is there, where there's hope. That whole issue of hope you talked about was important because what it is making a transition. Yes, we made the emphasis of the switch, but why are we switching? Why are we trying to make this transition? We're trying to do it to see how we can improve. Reference to the world buying in Paris Agreement was also important because it looks at what are the trends? Why is there this move towards sustainability in terms of a better environment? So that was useful. Brendan, you looked at some good statistics, UNDP. You hammered home a lot on the financial aspect of it, the dependency we have. How does this impact on it? So, but focusing on financial alone didn't deal with all the points of the global interdependence and how we all relate each other to building this, coming back to the Paris Agreement, coming back to, yes, there's a financial consequence, but also there's the impact of the factors that deal with it on a domestic basis. But again, good points. Marikai, you talked about your gradual transition, the environment, you took issue with the points that were raised in opposition. You tried to get a lot in because you had to rebut a lot that was brought out by QRC's lead speaker. And I think you had a challenge there, but you did well because you managed to encapsulate a lot of issues within a short space of time. Your summary speakers on both sides were really good. I think the summary speakers were important in bringing back home. Sean, you were able to revisit the 3 points very clearly, very concisely. You actually brought it home in case we forgot it, what those points were. You did not, you came back also to the point of saying that, look, it's not just a quick fix, but it's a long-term solution. So I think that was a very good use of bringing it home. And similarly, the closing speaker, Adrian, you did a really good use of choosing fear over future, building a world that is sustainable. There's no perfect solution with the cars, but it was an emotional appeal, which I think was important, which is part of the argument. It's not only about switching or the costs or the finances, but our future, our life. So I think you were able to, again, encapsulate, just as well as the other summary speaker, what was the argument of your side.
I feel like my colleagues would have gone into detail, so I'm not going to say much. Just to say that every single time there's a debate topic, I write it down on my scoring paper and I underline certain words. And for me, I would have underlined renewable energy, more harm than good. And I'm looking at you all to argue in those specific, that area. And I felt like, as Karen would have pointed out, you all went into switching. So the focus to me was shifted, but the real crux of the argument, I felt like, for me, I didn't pick it up. This is a pertinent topic, but a very intense one. So when you're delivering your content with a lot of facts, figures, examples, sometimes the listener can get lost. So for me, keep it simple, keep it relatable, keep it personable as well. This is a hard topic to debate because you don't quite know how to put in your peacock, you don't know how to make jokes, whatever, but still, that can help your audience listen to you better and make your arguments more convincing. So with that being said, just as I thought it was a good debate, I felt like the opening speakers, you all had so much packed into your opening statements that I felt a bit lost, but your rebuttal speakers on both sides, they brought the clarity and they really reinforced your arguments. I like the fact that in intense debates, you all are sticking to the 3-point format, point 1, point 2, point 3. That's helping me listen to you all when there's a lot of information. Just one other point to note, there was a speaker, I believe it would have been on, there was a rebuttal speaker who turned to the other side and said, and you are right. Be very careful when you do that, when you affirm that they are right, because those words now could influence the way that somebody's thinking into making you feel, making the listener think that they are right. When you are really just trying to, you want to point out something that they've said, not necessarily agree with them. So just be careful with that language. Overall, good debate.
Thank you, judges, and once again, congratulations to both teams. We now take a short break while our judges confer and tally the results to determine which two of our 4 teams will be moving forward to the finals of Make Your Point Season 4. Please do stay with us. We'll be right back. This is Make Your Point, Season 4, and the results are in. Congratulations to all 4 schools. Each school has put forth an outstanding and compelling performance and should be extremely proud of themselves. Fatima College, Bishop Anstey High School, Queen's Royal College, and St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph. Let's give them a well-deserved round of applause. A reminder that our judge's decision is final. And our judge's decision was not an easy one, as each team amazed us all. The nation is certainly in good hands, and you should be extremely proud of yourselves. Our finalists competing for the title of CNC3's Make Your Point Season 4 National Champion are Fatima College, and Queen's Royal College. Let's now give a very well-deserved round of applause for the schools who got this far and now exit the competition with their heads high for their remarkable and outstanding performances. I would now like to ask a representative from each of our 2 schools to draw from our ballot box to determine their topic and their position ahead of the next competition stage. Fatima College, I invite you to draw from the box. And Queen's Royal College, I invite you to draw from the box. A reminder that the symbol of the pen in red is for proposition and the mic in black is for opposition. There you have it. Our final debate will be Fatima College versus Queen's Royal College. All 4 competing schools in this episode have tackled tough and pertinent topics with compelling arguments demonstrating powerful debate skills. Make Your Point continues to be a pioneer for youth inclusion and empowerment, and we are excited for the finals. This was Make Your Point. Thank you for staying with us, and a special thanks to our judges, our sponsors, and to you, our viewers. I'm Priyanka Lala, and I'll see you at the finals.
Brought to you by the Ministry of Planning, Economic Affairs and Development, Paria Fuel Trading Company Limited, and Standard.